She thought she was just helping a stranger, but the unconscious man she saved was a millionaire CEO who would soon turn her entire world upside down. Before we dive into today's story, tell me, where in the world are you watching from and what time is it right now? Rain hammered the Chicago streets, a relentless drumbeat against the neon-lit chaos of downtown. The air was thick with the scent of wet asphalt and exhaust, the city pulsing with hurried footsteps and honking cabs. Robert, a 30-year-old millionaire CEO, cut through the crowd, his turquoise suit a sharp contrast to the gray blur of umbrellas. His tie was knotted tight, a symbol of the pressure strangling his days. His phone buzzed incessantly. Board meetings, merger talks, stock updates. Success was his crown, but it weighed heavy. Beneath the polished exterior, his eyes betrayed exhaustion, a man running on fumes. He hadn't eaten since dawn, hadn't slept properly in weeks. His heart raced, a warning he ignored. The world tilted. Robert's vision blurred, the neon signs swirling into streaks of light. His knees buckled, and he crumpled to the wet pavement, his briefcase skidding into a puddle. Papers, contracts worth millions, floated like lost dreams in the rain. The crowd parted around him, faces hidden under hoods, indifferent. A jogger sidestepped. A woman glanced, then hurried on. Robert's breath slowed, his consciousness fading into the cold. He was alone, a king fallen in a kingdom that didn't care. Then, a small voice pierced the storm. "Mister, are you okay?" Olivia, a 6-year-old with golden hair matted by rain, knelt beside him. Her green frock clung to her skinny frame, dirt streaking her cheeks like warrior paint. Her blue eyes, wide and fierce, locked onto Robert's pale face. She shook his shoulder, her tiny hands trembling but determined. "Mister, wake up," she pleaded, her voice cracking with urgency. The crowd kept moving, but Olivia stayed, a lone beacon in the sea of apathy. She scanned the street, her heart pounding. No one stopped. No one cared. Olivia's mind raced. She remembered her mother's words. "Kindness is all we've got, Livy." Her life wasn't. Teasy, her mother worked double shifts, their apartment leaked and school kids mocked her worn shoes, but Olivia was no stranger to helping. She fed stray cats behind the dumpster, gave her sandwich to the old man by the park. Now this man needed her. His face, even unconscious, looked sad, like he carried a weight heavier than her own. She couldn't leave him. She reached into her pocket, pulling out a crumpled drawing. A child's sketch of a sun shining over a stick-figure family. It was her treasure, made for her mother to cheer her up after a long shift. Olivia hesitated, then tucked it into Robert's limp hand. "You're gonna be okay," she whispered, her voice fierce with conviction. The rain soaked her through, but she didn't move, shielding his face with her small body. Her blue eyes burned with resolve, a fire no storm could douse. A businessman in a trench coat paused, frowning. "Kid, get out of the rain," he muttered, walking on. Olivia ignored him, her focus unbreakable. She waved at a taxi idling nearby, its driver chewing on a toothpick. "Please help him," she shouted, her voice rising above the storm. The driver, grizzled and tired, leaned out his window, skeptical. "What's a kid doing out here?" he grumbled, but Olivia's desperation hit him like a wave. Her dirt-streaked face, her soaked dress, her unwavering courage. It stirred something in him. "Call someone, he's hurt," Olivia insisted, her small fists clenched. The driver sighed, pulling out his phone. "All right, kid, hold on." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Olivia stayed by Robert's side, her hand gripping his, the drawing now soggy but still clutched in his fingers. She didn't know who he was, a CEO, a man with a penthouse and a private jet. To her, he was just a person, lost and alone, like the cats she fed or the old man she helped. The ambulance screeched to a halt, red lights flash, ing against the rain. Paramedics rushed over, their boots splashing in puddles. "Step back, kid," one said, but Olivia held her ground. "He's important," she said, her voice steady despite her shivering. "I can tell." The paramedics exchanged a glance, moved by her conviction. They checked Robert's pulse, lifting him onto a stretcher. Olivia watched, her heart tight with worry. She didn't know if he'd live, but she'd done all she could. As the ambulance doors closed, the crowd began to disperse, the moment fading into the city's rhythm. Olivia stood alone, rain dripping from her golden hair. She didn't cry, she was too strong for that, but her blue eyes held a quiet hope. She'd given away her drawing, her gift for her mother, because this man needed it more. "Get better, mister," she whispered, her words lost in the storm. The camera lingers on her small figure, a silhouette against the city's glow. The screen fades to black, a heartbeat echoing. Who is this girl, and what will her kindness unleash? The question hangs, pulling the audience deeper into the story, their hearts already tethered to Olivia's courage and Robert's fragile fate. The ambulance doors slammed shut, sealing Robert inside as red lights pierced the Chicago rain. Olivia stood frozen on the slick pavement, her green frock clinging to her shivering frame. The crowd dispersed, their umbrellas bobbing like dark waves, leaving her alone in the storm's fading echo. Her golden hair dripped, framing blue eyes that held a flicker of hope. She'd given her drawing, her mother's gift, to a stranger, a man whose sad face lingered in her mind. The city's pulse resumed, but Olivia's heart beat with purpose. She'd done something brave, something right. She turned toward home, her sneakers splashing through puddles. The neon signs cast a glow on her dirt-streaked cheeks, each step heavy with the weight of her choice. Her mother, Clara, would be worried, maybe angry. Olivia pictured her mother's tired eyes, etched with worry from endless shifts at the diner. Their apartment, a cramped space with peeling paint, was all they had. Yet Olivia never felt poor, not when she could help someone. She remembered the stray cat she'd named Sunny, how it purred when she shared her crusts. Helping felt like magic, like she could fix the world's broken pieces. The rain eased to a drizzle as Olivia reached her street, a maze of graffiti-scarred buildings. She clutched her empty pocket, where the drawing had been. It was a sketch of a sun, a house, two stick figures holding hands, her dream of a family whole again. Her father had left when she was 3, a shadow in her memory. Clara never spoke of him, but Olivia felt the ache in her mother's silence. The drawing was her way of saying, "We're enough." Now it was gone, given to a man who needed hope more than she did. A gruff voice broke her thoughts. "Hey kid, you lost?" The taxi driver from earlier, his cab idling nearby, leaned out, toothpick still in his mouth. His name tag read Tony. Olivia shook her head, her voice steady. "I'm going home. Did they take him to the hospital?" Tony nodded, his weathered face softening. "Yeah, kid, you did good back there." Olivia's lips curved slightly, a spark of pride in her chest. She wasn't just a kid, she was someone who mattered. Tony hesitated, then pulled out his phone. "Let me make sure they got him safe." He dialed, speaking low to a dispatcher. Olivia listened, her heart tight. "He's stable, at Mercy Hospital," Tony relayed, his eyes meeting hers. "You saved him, you know." Olivia's cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. "He looked like he needed a friend," she said softly. Tony chuckled, a warm sound. "You're something else, kid." He offered her a ride, but Olivia shook her head. "I walk. Mama says it keeps me strong." The 10-minute trek to her apartment felt longer in the damp chill. Olivia's mind wandered to the man in the turquoise suit. Why was he so sad? She'd seen that look before, on her mother after a bad day, on the old man by the park. It was the look of someone carrying too much alone. She hummed a tune, one Clara sang, when she tucked her in, to keep the fear at bay. The city was big, and she was small, but her heart felt bigger than the skyscrapers. She reached her building, its flickering hallway light buzzing like a trapped fly. Clara's voice echoed from the apartment door, sharp with worry. "Olivia Marie, where've you been?" Olivia stepped inside, bracing for a scolding. Clara, still in her diner uniform, knelt and pulled her into a fierce hug. "You scared me half to death," she whispered, her voice breaking. Olivia's throat tightened. "I'm sorry, Mama. There was a man. He fell. I had to help." Clara pulled back, searching her daughter's face. "What man?" Olivia recounted the story, her words tumbling out. The rain, the crowd, the man's pale face. She didn't mention the drawing, it felt too big to explain. Clara's eyes softened, pride mixing with fear. You're too brave for your own good, she said, brushing a wet strand from Olivia's forehead. But you can't fix everyone, Livy. Olivia nodded, but deep down, she disagreed. She'd seen the man's hand close around her drawing, like it meant something. Maybe she could fix someone. Clara stood, exhaustion carving lines into her face. Go change, you're soaked. Olivia obeyed, slipping into dry pajamas, but her mind stayed on the man. She imagined him waking up, seeing her drawing, maybe smiling. At the hospital, miles away, Robert stirred, his fingers brushing the soggy paper. A nurse hovered, checking his chart. Some kid left this for you, she said, her voice gentle. Robert's eyes, hazy with fatigue, focused on the sketch, a son, a family, a spark of light in his fog. Back at home, Olivia climbed into bed, the springs creaking. Clara sat beside her, stroking her hair. You're my brave girl, she murmured. Olivia's eyes grew heavy, but her heart was light. She'd helped a stranger, given him her dream. As sleep pulled her under, he wondered if he'd be okay. The city hummed outside, its rhythm unbroken, but something had shifted. Olivia's courage, small as it was, had set a chain in motion, one that would ripple far beyond this rainy night. The hospital room glowed faintly, its white walls softened by a bedside lamp's amber light. Robert lay beneath thin sheets, his once sharp turquoise suit replaced by a pale gown. Monitors hummed, their steady beeps a quiet anchor in the sterile silence. His mind stirred, haunted by a child's voice, small but fierce, cutting through the rain-soaked fog of his collapse. His eyes opened slowly, squinting against the dim light. The weight of his life pressed down. A tech empire built on sleepless nights, a merger hanging by a thread, a schedule that left no room for breath. Yet something felt different, like a crack in his carefully guarded world. His gaze drifted to the bedside table, where a crumpled, rain-damaged paper caught his eye. It was a child's drawing, a vibrant sun, its rays uneven but bold, above two stick figures holding hands, a house with a slanted roof. Robert's fingers brushed the smudged crayon, a strange warmth blooming in his chest. It was more than art, it was a gesture, a gift from someone who saw him when he was invisible. He didn't understand why it was there, but it felt like a lifeline, pulling him back from the edge. A nurse entered, her name tag reading Sarah, her eyes kind but tired. You're awake, she said, checking his chart with practiced ease. How's the head? Robert's voice rasped, unused. Better. This drawing, who left it? Sarah's lips curved softly. A little girl. Said you needed it. Stayed with you in the rain till help came. Robert's breath caught, fragments of memory surfacing. Wet pavement, a small hand, blue eyes filled with worry. A girl? He whispered, his heart stirring with something new, gratitude, raw and unfamiliar. Across the city, Olivia nestled in her creaky bed, the mattress sagging under her small frame. Her faded pajamas, patched at the knees, smelled faintly of Clara's lavender soap. The apartment's thin walls let in the hum of a neighbor's TV, but Olivia's mind was elsewhere. She stared at the ceiling, its cracks like a map of her worries. Her mother's voice lingered, soft from their bedtime talk. You're my brave girl. Olivia's thoughts returned to the man from the street, his pale face etched in her memory. Had he seen her drawing? Did it make him feel less alone? She pictured him in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines. She'd been there once, after a fever that left her weak, Clara's hand never leaving hers. Did the man have someone to hold his hand? Olivia's heart ached at the thought. She didn't know he was a CEO, a name in glossy magazines, a man with a penthouse overlooking the city. To her, he was just someone who needed help, someone whose sadness mirrored the quiet pain she saw in her mother's eyes after long shifts. In the hospital, Robert's fingers traced the drawing's lines, each one a question. He'd spent years building a fortress of success, stock options, private jets, a corner office with a view. But the view never filled the emptiness. His parents, gone since he was a teen, had left him with ambition but no warmth. He'd buried himself in work, outrunning the silence of his life. Now this simple sketch, a child's dream of family, cracked that fortress open. A 6-year-old had seen him, not as a titan of industry, but as a man adrift. Sarah returned, adjusting his IV with gentle hands. "Doctor says stress and exhaustion did you in," she said. "You're lucky that girl was there." Robert swallowed, the word lucky hitting like a revelation. "Lucky," he murmured, his voice thick. He thought of his employees, their cautious nods in meetings, their fear of his sharp edges. He thought of clients who sent lavish gifts but never asked about his life. The drawing was a rebuke, a reminder of what he'd lost chasing power. Olivia, drifting to war, had sleep, clutched her blanket. She imagined the man waking, finding her drawing, maybe smiling. She'd given it up, her gift for Clara, her dream of a family whole again. Her father's absence was a shadow she didn't name, but it shaped her. Clara worked to keep them afloat, and Olivia helped however she could, sharing snacks, feeding strays, now saving a stranger. Her small prayer slipped out. "Please let him be okay." Her faith wasn't in gods or stars, it was in kindness, in the power of a hand reached out. Robert's thoughts spiraled, the monitor's rhythm a counterpoint to his unease. He'd always prided himself on control, on a life where nothing could hurt him. But this child's act had pierced that armor. Who was she? Why had she stopped when the city rushed past? The questions burned, sparking a need to find her, to thank her, to understand why her kindness felt like a mirror to his soul. He imagined her out there, in a world that didn't always reward such heart. Sarah reappeared, holding a small, folded note. "Almost forgot," she said, handing it over. "The girl left this too." Robert's hands trembled as he opened it. In wobbly crayon it read, "Get better, mister, you're not alone." His chest tightened, a tear escaping down his cheek. For the first time in years he felt seen, not as a CEO or a success, but as a man. The note was a promise, a spark in his darkness, a reason to keep going. The room fell silent, the city's pulse faint beyond the window. Robert held the note and drawing close, their weight anchoring him. He didn't know her name, but her words echoed, "You're not alone." Dawn was hours away, but a resolve took root. He'd find this girl, not just to say thank you, but to learn what she knew, how to live with a heart open to the world. The hospital room faded into dawn's gray light, the city stirring beyond the window. Robert sat up in bed, the crayon note, "Get, stick figure family," sat framed in his mind, a beacon in his fog of loneliness. He was a man who'd conquered boardrooms, but this small act of kindness had undone him. As the monitors quieted, replaced by the hum of morning, a resolve hardened within him. He needed to find this girl, to thank her, to understand why her care felt like the first real thing in years. Discharged by noon, Robert stepped into his penthouse office, the Chicago skyline sprawling below. His turquoise suit was gone, replaced by a simple sweater, but his presence still commanded the room. His assistant, Emily, eyed him warily, unused to the softness in his gaze. "You're back early," she said, handing him a stack of merger documents. Robert barely glanced at them, his focus on the drawing now taped to his desk. "I need a favor," he said, voice low but firm. "Find the girl who helped me. Hospital footage, anything." Emily blinked, surprised. "A girl?" Robert nodded, holding up the note. "She saved me." Across the city, Olivia skipped down her apartment's cracked hallway, her green frock swapped for a school uniform, slightly too big. Her blue eyes sparkled with purpose, though her heart carried a quiet worry. She hadn't told Clara about the drawing, she didn't want her mother to know she'd given away her gift. At school, the playground was a battleground. Kids snickered at her frayed backpack, calling her charity case. Olivia stood tall, her fierce spirit unbowed. "At least I help people," she shot back, her voice sharp. She thought of the man from the street, hoping he was okay, hoping her drawing had brought him a smile. In his office, Robert paced, the note and drawing his only clues. He called a private investigator, Marcus, a man with a knack for finding needles in haystacks. "She's young, maybe 6, blonde hair, blue eyes," Robert described, his voice urgent. "She was at Mercy Hospital 2 nights ago." Marcus raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. "You're chasing a kid over a drawing?" Robert's jaw tightened. "She's not just a kid. She's different." He couldn't explain the pull, the way her kindness had cracked open a part of him he'd buried under deals and deadlines. Olivia sat in class, doodling a new sun on her notebook, its rays bolder than before. Her teacher, Ms. Harper, noticed her distraction. "Everything okay, Olivia?" she asked, her voice gentle. Olivia nodded, but her thoughts were on the man. She wondered if he had a family, someone to bring him soup or tell him stories. She'd always been the one to cheer Clara up, leaving notes under her pillow after tough days. Helping felt like her superpower, even if it meant giving up something precious. She tucked her pencil away, her small hands steady despite the ache of missing her drawing. Robert's office buzzed with activity, but he felt detached from it. His employees whispered, noting his distraction. "He's different since the hospital," one said. Robert overheard, unbothered. He stared at the skyline, its towers a testament to his success, yet hollow without connection. He remembered his sister, estranged after a fight years ago, her laughter a distant echo. The girl's note felt like a bridge to that lost warmth, a chance to reclaim something human. He turned to Emily, who was scrolling through hospital contacts. "Any leads?" he asked. She shook her head. "Security footage is tricky, but we're trying." Olivia's school day ended with a scuffle. A boy, Tommy, snatched her notebook, mocking her doodles. "What's this? Another charity project?" he sneered. Olivia's eyes blazed. "It's hope, something you wouldn't get." She grabbed it back, her heart racing. She didn't need their approval. She had her mother, her small acts of kindness, her belief in good. Walking home, she passed the park where Ishi fed stray cats, their purrs a reminder of why she kept going. She wondered if the man was out there, maybe looking for her too. Marcus called Robert, his voice crackling through the speaker. "Got something. Hospital cameras caught her leaving with a woman, maybe her mom. They live in Englewood, rough area." Robert's heart skipped. Englewood was worlds away from his glass tower, a place of struggle he'd never touched. "Find her address," he said, his voice steady but urgent. Marcus hesitated. "It's not a place you just walk into, Mr. CEO." Robert's gaze fell on the note, its crayon words a quiet command. "I'm not just walking in, I'm going to thank her." The sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the city. Olivia helped Clara set the table, their tiny kitchen filled with the scent of canned soup. "You're quiet today," Clara said, brushing Olivia's hair back. Olivia smiled, hiding her thoughts. "Just thinking, Mama." She didn't say she was thinking of a stranger, of a note she hoped he'd read. In his office, Robert stood, the note in his pocket, the drawing on his desk. He was a man used to solving problems, but this felt bigger, a puzzle of the heart. As night fell, he knew finding her would change everything. The Chicago skyline glowed under a bruised evening sky as Robert's sleek black car rolled through Englewood's worn streets. The note, "Get better, mister, you're not alone," lay folded in his pocket, its crayon words a quiet drumbeat in his heart. His office, with its glass walls and merger papers, felt a world away. Marcus's warning echoed. Englewood was rough, a place where hope fought to survive. Robert's sweater felt out of place among the graffiti-scarred buildings, but his resolve was unshaken. He needed to find the girl who'd seen him when no one else had, whose kindness had sparked something he couldn't ignore. The car stopped outside a crumbling apartment complex, its windows patched with tape. Robert stepped out, drawing stares from kids kicking a soccer ball on the sidewalk. Their eyes sized him up, a stranger in their world. He clutched the address Marcus had texted, his pulse quickening. The building's buzzer was broken, so he pushed through a creaky door, climbing stairs that smelled of mildew and old paint. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from anticipation. What would he say to a child who'd changed him with a single act? He reached apartment 3B and knocked, the sound sharp in the quiet hall. Inside, Olivia set the table, her small hands arranging mismatched spoons. The kitchen was cramped, lit by a flickering bulb, but Clara's soup simmering on the stove filled it with warmth. Olivia's school uniform hung loose, her golden hair tied back with a frayed ribbon. She hummed softly, her thoughts on the man from the street. Had her note reached him? Clara, stirring the pot, glanced at her daughter. "You're humming again. she said, a tired smile breaking through. Olivia grinned. Just happy, Mama. She didn't mention the man, afraid to worry her mother, who carried enough already. The knock startled them. Clara frowned, wiping her hands on her apron. Who's that at this hour? She muttered, crossing to the door. Olivia followed, curiosity tugging at her. Clara opened it, revealing Robert, his tall frame filling the doorway. His eyes, soft but intense, scanned the room until they landed on Olivia. Her blue eyes widened, a gasp escaping. "You're the mister from the street," she exclaimed, her voice bright with recognition. Robert's breath caught, his heart swelling at her smile. "I'm Robert," he said, voice thick. "You saved me." Clara's gaze darted between them, confusion etching her face. "Saved you?" she asked, her tone wary. Olivia stepped forward, her small hand brushing Clara's. "He fell, Mama. In the rain. I helped." Robert knelt to Olivia's level, his eyes glistening. "You did more than help," he said. "You gave me something to hold on to." He pulled the note from his pocket, its edges worn from his touch. Olivia beamed, her dirt-streaked pride replaced by pure joy. "You got my note," she said, her voice a melody of relief. Clara's shoulders tensed, protective. Instincts flaring. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice sharp. Robert stood, his expression earnest. "To thank her. She gave me her drawing, her words. They changed me." He hesitated, then continued. "I was lost, running a company but losing myself. Your daughter reminded me what matters." Clara's eyes softened, but worry lingered. She pulled Olivia close, her hand trembling. "We don't need charity," she said, pride stiffening her spine. Robert shook his head. "This isn't charity, it's gratitude." Then came the twist. Clara's voice broke as she spoke, her words heavy with a secret she'd guarded. "We're barely holding on," she admitted, her eyes dropping. "Eviction notice came last week. Olivia's been hiding her worry, acting strong for me." Olivia's smile faded, her blue eyes clouding. "I didn't want you to be sad, Mama," she whispered, her voice small. Robert's heart sank, the weight of their struggle hitting him. The drawing wasn't just a gift. It was Olivia's dream of stability, given to him when her own world was crumbling. He looked at Olivia, her fierce spirit now tinged with vulnerability. "You gave me hope when I had none," he said, his voice cracking. "I want to give that back." Clara's eyes brimmed with tears, her pride warring with relief. "She's always helping others," she said, voice thick, "even when we have so little." Robert nodded, his resolve deepening. "You're not alone either," he said, echoing Olivia's note. The words hung in the air, a promise binding them in that small, warm kitchen. Olivia tugged Robert's sleeve, her eyes bright again. "Did you like the sun?" she asked, pointing to an imaginary drawing. Robert smiled, a tear escaping. "It's the brightest sun I've ever seen." He saw Clara's exhaustion, Olivia's courage, and felt a shift within himself. He wasn't just a CEO anymore, he was a man who owed a child his life. The room fell silent, the soup's steam curling upward, a fragile moment of connection in a world that often broke it. Robert stepped back, his heart full. "I'll be in touch," he said, his voice steady but soft. "I want to help, like you helped me." Olivia's smile was a sunrise, her belief in kindness unshaken. Clara nodded, a cautious hope in her eyes. As Robert left, the door closing behind him, he felt the note in his pocket like a talisman. He didn't know how yet, but he'd make things right for them. The city hummed outside, but in that moment, their worlds had collided, forever changed. Alexander led them under the shelter of a deeper awning, the storm's spray muted but still whispering against the pavement. His breath came slow, visible in the chilled air. Without a word, he slipped the strap of his umbrella onto his wrist, freeing both hands. His leather briefcase, sleek, immaculate, the kind that seemed allergic to dirt, was lowered to the wet concrete with a care that seemed almost ceremonial. Rainwater spotted its surface, but he didn't glance at the damage. The silver clasps clicked open, immaculate, the kind that seemed allergic to dirt, was lowered to the wet concrete with a care that seemed almost ceremonial. Rainwater spotted its surface, but he didn't glance at the damage. The silver clasps clicked open, and he tilted the case toward them. Inside, nestled in black velvet, a small robotic drone gleamed under the fractured light. The brushed metal caught the shifting glow of the street lamp, its streamlined wings promising flight, freedom, and distraction from any reality. He looked first at Molly, her gaze caught by the device almost instantly. Her eyelids were heavy, but curiosity pushed them wider. A faint parting of her lips hinted at wonder. Alexander could have placed it in her hands then and there. It would have been easy, simple, the way he'd handled generosity be. Quick, clean, requiring no real investment of himself. But his eyes shifted to Lily. Her expression was unreadable. She did not even glance at the drone. Instead, her gaze stayed anchored to his, steady as a nail driven deep into wood. He could feel her measuring him, her silence heavier than any negotiation he'd faced in a boardroom. He cleared his throat. Alexander. Choose. This toy, or a job in my office. 1 hour, $20. The wind sighed past, carrying with it the hum of a distant car horn. Molly's tired eyes flickered again toward the gleaming machine, as if hoping her sister might see what she saw. But Lily's head didn't turn. It was as if the toy didn't exist. She stepped a fraction closer, her small frame bracing against the cold, the tension in her shoulders visible even beneath the damp jacket. Her voice, when it came, was low but carried an edge of urgency sharp enough to cut. Lily. I'll work, please. Molly's sick now, she's hungry now. The way she said now was not a plea, it was a verdict, final, non-negotiable. Alexander felt the syllable land in his chest like a blow, not a shove, not a jab, a strike that bypassed muscle and went straight to the place he kept locked. He inhaled through his nose, slow, but the air felt thick. He'd been told now, before, by shareholders, by politicians, by investors, but never like this. Never from a voice this small, or eyes this relentless. A drop of rain slid down his temple, and he didn't brush it away. He was staring, and he knew it, but he couldn't stop. The drone, bright and perfect in its cradle, felt suddenly absurd. The leather briefcase, a symbol of power, looked to him now like a container for all the wrong priorities. His hand hovered over the drone but not to offer it. Instead he closed the lid with a soft click, the metallic snap loud in the hush between them. His gaze shifted to Molly again. Her breathing was uneven, her small hands curled inside the sleeves of her too thin coat. He thought of the warmth inside his building just across the street, the mahogany floors, the leather chairs, the hum of the heating system, and felt an ache at how close it was and how far it must seem to them. Alexander. You didn't even think about it, did you? Lily's brow furrowed slightly. About what? Alexander. The toy. She shook her head once, decisive. Toys don't fix what's wrong. Her words were plain, but they landed like an indictment. He crouched lower, the fabric of his coat brushing against the damp ground. Most kids would have grabbed it, he said quietly. I'm not most kids, she replied. He almost smiled at the echo of his earlier thought, but the moment was too heavy for it. Molly shifted, leaning more against her sister, eyes half-lidded now. The sight pulled something taut inside him. He had a choice. Keep standing here with a closed briefcase, or open a different kind of door. His fingers tightened on the handle, not to protect it, but to anchor himself in the moment. He drew in a breath, voice softer than before. Alexander, come with me. It wasn't an order, not even an invitation in the usual sense. It was something closer to a promise, though he hadn't yet defined what he was promising. He rose, holding the briefcase in one hand, and extended the other toward Lily. She didn't take it right away. Her eyes flicked to Molly, then back to him, scanning his face for something she couldn't name, but would know if she saw. The rain shifted direction, spattering the side of his coat. He didn't move. Finally, she gave a short nod, slipping her hand into his, her fingers small and cold but steady. Molly followed, gripping her sister's other hand. Together, they stepped out from under the awning into the wet shimmer of the street, the tower ahead catching the light like a promise waiting to be tested. Lily tilted her head, her eyes still holding that strange mixture of innocence and wisdom that seemed far too heavy for someone so young. The kind of look that made Alexander feel like she could see straight through every defense he had spent years building, and for a moment he almost looked away, afraid she might find the truth hidden there. Her small voice broke the silence with a question that was sharper than it should have been. What happened to her? And Alexander's chest tightened instantly, because the simple question carried with it the weight of an entire history he had spent years burying under deals, acquisitions, and the endless pursuit of power, and he could feel his throat tighten as the memories came uninvited, clawing their way into the present. But he hesitated, letting the seconds stretch, staring at the floor as if the grain of the polished wood could give him an escape route, knowing full well that the answer was the root of the cold fortress he called a heart. I was too busy chasing success to see she was sick, he said finally, his voice low and almost unrecognizable to himself, each word heavier than the last, the admission dragging a sharp ache into his chest as he forced himself to look up at the girl who now seemed like a mirror of all the moments he wished he could redo. I missed my chance to help, and the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with the quiet hum of the city far below the office windows, the faint tick of the clock on the wall, and the sound of Molly's soft breathing from the couch, yet above it all, Lily's eyes never left his face, studying him as though measuring the worth of his confession. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, but the words were edged like broken glass. Then don't miss this one. And Alexander felt the sentence pierce deeper than any insult from a business rival ever had, because it wasn't a challenge, it was a plea, a command, and a truth all at once, and for the first time in years, he felt the weight of another person's hope pressing against his own guarded soul, shaking loose something he thought had long died inside him. His hand tightened around the mug of untouched coffee in front of him, the heat of it barely reaching his cold fingers as images of his sister flashed unbidden, her laughter on a rainy afternoon, the pale look on her face that he had brushed aside as exhaustion, the last phone call he hadn't answered because he was in a meeting that, looking back, meant nothing at all, and the crushing realization that success had been his shield and his curse. He drew in a slow breath, but it felt like it carried years of regret, and when he finally exhaled, his gaze drifted to the small figure in front of him, the girl whose hands were clasped tightly in her lap as though holding on to the last bit of control in a world that had taken too much from her, and in her, he saw the same fear, the same determination he had seen in his sister's eyes the night she told him she'd be fine, the night before she wasn't. Something inside him shifted, not in a dramatic crash, but in a quiet, undeniable click, like the unlocking of a door he hadn't realized was closed, and he realized that if he let these two girls walk out of his life without doing something, without stepping in, without caring, he would be repeating the same mistake, only this time, there would be no excuse, no ignorance to hide behind, only choice. His voice came out steadier than he expected when he said, "You're right," though the words felt foreign in his mouth, and Lily's brows lifted just slightly, as if she hadn't expected him to agree so quickly, but he continued before she could speak, "I don't want to miss it." And even as he said it, he wasn't entirely sure what "it" meant yet, only that it had everything to do with them, with her, with Molly, with breaking a cycle that had cost him the only family he'd had. He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight, and let the truth settle between them like an unspoken promise, his eyes flicking once, more to Molly's sleeping form, the way she curled instinctively toward the warmth of the blanket, and then back to Lily, whose expression softened just enough for him to see that, beneath her guarded strength, she was still just a child desperately trying to hold her world together, and that realization, more than anything, made his chest ache in a way no business loss ever could. That night, Alexander worked the phone like a man possessed, his voice shifting between clipped urgency with doctors, firm authority with lawyers, and a rare gentleness when instructing his own kitchen staff to prepare warm, nourishing meals tailored for Molly's fragile state. Each call felt like laying another brick in a wall of protection he was determined to build around them, a wall he wished someone had once built for him. By the time dawn broke, pale light spilling over the skyline, Molly was nestled in a crisp white hospital bed, her tiny hands clutching the blanket as a team of the city's best specialists examined her, murmuring reassurances while Alexander stood in the corner, his tailored suit rumpled, his eyes shadowed from lack of sleep, refusing to leave her side even when the nurses suggested he rest. Over the next week, his presence became a constant, hovering in hospital corridors, signing forms without hesitation, coordinating with architects to renovate a cozy apartment just 2 floors beneath his penthouse, ensuring it was stocked with plush blankets, shelves of children's books, and a kitchen Lily could call her own. No detail was too small, not the lavender-scented candles for the living room, nor the sunlight-catching curtains in Molly's bedroom. When they finally moved in, the apartment seemed to hum with warmth, a stark contrast to the icy loneliness that had once clung to Lily's rented room. He'd given her what she had thought was a 1-hour job, but rewritten it into a permanent role as his personal junior assistant, with a salary generous enough to anchor them in safety and dignity. The work wasn't meaningless either. Lily sat beside him during meetings, learning the language of contracts and business negotiations, while Molly often appeared in the office after school, filling the once sterile space with laughter that disarmed even the most stone-faced board members. One evening, as the city outside bathed in the gold of a fading sunset, Lily closed the file she was reviewing, her gaze lingering on him. There was something unreadable in her eyes, a quiet recognition of the man before her, not just the billionaire CEO, but the boy he must have been, the one who once held his sister's hand in the dark. "You're different now," she said softly, the words neither accusation nor praise but a truth that hung in the air between them. Alexander's lips curved into the faintest smile, a smile tinged with humility and the weight of everything unspoken, and he shook his head slowly. "No. I just remembered who I was supposed to be," he replied, his voice steady, but carrying the echo of the promise he'd silently made the night he refused to fail them. This time, there would be no missed chances, no unguarded loved ones, no regrets left to haunt him in the quiet hours before dawn.